Today, we are talking about one of my favorite topics, and that is just life growth. And we have brought in Dr. Glenn and Phyllis's son, Sky, who is also very passionate about this topic. And in this episode, he talks about how he does life lessons with his kids. And so this whole episode, I'm just thinking, is life lessons from Sky to all of us in your ears. And it is full of incredible information. So you may need to listen twice, and the second time, grab a notebook. And we are so glad you are here. Welcome to The Connection Codes. This is the podcast where we break open our emotions that take us from being disconnected to connected in our relationships and in ourselves. I am your host, Tiara Wages, and I'm here with clinical sexologist, marriage and family therapist, Dr. Glenn Hill, and his incredible wife who brought this whole thing together, Phyllis Hill. And together they have founded The Connection Codes, which is the guide to human connection. And we're so glad you're here.
Hello, world.
Hi, friends. Well, this is an exciting episode for us because we have our son, Sky Hill, with us today. And this kind of came about out of a conversation that we actually had in December. We got to spend a day together, the four of us. And after we were done, I'm like, we should have recorded that whole entire conversation. That was amazing. And then I said, let's do a podcast where we actually share just this vision that we have for 2023. And we were kind of recapping the end of the year, 2022, like what is sometimes really good to look back. And that, especially for me, was super helpful to look back and go, okay, where were we a year ago and where are we now? And man, that was really powerful. And probably for you too, Glenn, where it's harder for you to celebrate things. And so I think the big thing was just looking back and going, wow, we really did do a lot in 2022. And then we wanted to jump right in and talk about our goals for 2023. And Sky said, well, hold on a minute. I think there's a bridge. And I loved that analogy. There is a bridge. Like you celebrate, you look backwards and you go, wow, look at the vacations we took. Look at the project we did on the house. And look at this. And look at the books I read. How many books did I read? And to actually go back and do some inventory is a really cool thing. But then instead of just jumping right into here's all my goals for the year for 2023, I loved the way you kind of said it, Sky, with just the idea of, well, let's have a bridge between the two. And so that's what I wanted us to kind of jump into today, to kind of have that same conversation.
Yeah, and we just want to say to our audience, I mean, this is our son, so obviously we're prejudiced and biased and all that stuff, but he is a remarkable individual as far as what he has accomplished in his own life. And we were so inspired by just sitting in the room with him because it was just amazing. And again, he's our son, so we knew him back when he wore diapers. But just realizing this guy is unbelievable, and it just flowed out of him, the points that he made, and have inspired us. I don't know, has it been 3 weeks or something since then? And it's just been so incredibly inspiring for us. And it's really cool to have that relationship, with our kids, that they inspire us. I mean, we're very much teammates. We're living life together. And so it was just so significant to us that we want you to share it with the world because it's that good.
Okay. These feel like big shoes to fill. But
you want a drum roll or like a trumpet blast? What would be best for you?
No, I think for me, it's always interesting to hear other people's takeaways because we have talked since then, but I did not know that it was impactful to the level that y'all are currently speaking about it. So, you never know who you're going to...
Well, I did a vision board for the very first time in my life because of that conversation. Simply because it gave me almost like I slowed down enough to sit and to really contemplate the things that you shared with us that day. And then I realized that this is really what I want to go into 2023 really looking at. And so that's where that whole vision board came from. And it really reflects a lot of what you shared that day.
Yeah. And I also just almost as a intro or segue or something, that the Connection Codes creates an atmosphere where you can dream. Most people live in such defeat and such turmoil, and that was certainly true for our relationship for so long. our vision was so limited because we're just trying to make it through the day. You know, I wake up in the morning thinking I want to live in peace. I want to live in connection. I want to live in love, but we don't. And there's just pain, pain, pain. And so for people to get that basis, well, then the upside potential becomes clearer and people don't know what to do next. It's like, okay, yeah, we're finally living in some connection, some peace. So what is our potential? And it's just amazing. And we always say that the vast majority of people that we sit with, their income, just their dollars, their revenue increases drastically in a year or two because now they're not expending all their energy on their pain and their disconnection. And that's what leads us into so much of what you presented that day.
Yeah, and I think what you said is a good reminder of where a lot of this started for Meg and I. So I would say that we've always been people that wanted to live an excellent life and wanted to live up to our potential, whatever that meant. And I think that is a moving target, which is a lesson that I've had to learn. But so a lot of this started at the end of 2021 for us of just feeling restless and stuck, where we felt like we continued to hit this. Well, I would say probably more me, felt like I continued to hit this wall of not being proud of myself. So laying in bed late at night, when everything got quiet, I would often have that recurring feeling of, I don't know that I'm very proud of myself. Like there aren't these specific things that I can look at about my day that turns into my weeks, my months, my years, that now is my life that I go, I'm really proud of myself. So a big moment for us was sitting with our life coach at the time, still currently, but this is about a year and a half ago now, or a little less. And that was the question that kept coming up is, are you proud of yourself? And understanding what that meant specifically was really important to me, and why the answer was no. So not just the flippant statement of, no, I'm not proud of myself, or yes, I'm proud of myself, but what specifically? What are the things that you would say, I'm not really proud of what I'm doing here, or I'm really proud of myself? So for me, it started with that question. The quick answer turned into tangible logistics. I needed daily checklists that I could do, that I could probably make a pretty good argument that everybody needs that, but I just know for me in particular, I needed that. I needed those daily wins. And so the three that I came up with our life coach was who Sky is to the world, and who Sky needs to be for himself. To answer that question, yes, she presented, pick three things. My three things were, I needed to wake up early, I needed to work out every day, and I needed to not eat fast food. I don't really know where those three now in hindsight came from, but I could envision a Sky in the near future that did those three things every day. And in my mind then, I envisioned that if I did those three things, I would go to sleep and be proud of me. So it was that simple. And I think that it, in a lot of these conversations that I've had, a lot of content that I've consumed that talks about this topic, sometimes it gets too big and too daunting.
Right, yeah. I'm sorry to interject, but because our whole positioning with the Connection Codes is we want people to be able to do something today, to have a shift today. You know, to say to somebody, have a great marriage. Whoa, okay, that sounds fantastic. Yeah. Who doesn't already think that? So even the three that you said are so, I mean, get up early. And I always tell Phyllis I love being up early. I don't like getting up early.
Sure.
But, and I actually, my goal this year is to get up at 4:04 every morning, Alaska time. And so, and I've done it. It's been amazing. So we went to Alaska and we love people there. So I felt like that was a camaraderie, a real connection thing. So that's my goal every day, to get up at 4:04 Alaska time. But things like that, just that are so doable. This is not, and I did P90X years ago for, I think it was 3 days or something. I don't know, but it was so friggin' intense. And if you're a P90Xer, I'm not fussing at you, but I can't do P90X. It's too much. It's just out there.
Yeah, and I think that is what I've learned through this journey of the past year is some people need to be doing P90X.
Sure.
And some people need to be walking to their mailbox and back.
Right.
So I think with the beginning, the foundational idea of are you proud of yourself makes it so deeply personal that it doesn't need to be your goal. And I don't know that really any I mean, you can have accountability, you can have people that are partnering with you in life, but like, it's your life. In the most kind way, nobody cares what you do, good or bad. Like, so to me, there was just this piece that came about from the idea of I'm not happy with my life. And I think there was this understanding for a period of my adulthood that somebody was going to show up and either save me, or somebody was going to show up and guide me of how I can be happy with my life. And through a lot of therapy and coaching, there was just the realization of like, I feel like this comes across poorly, but nobody cares. It's just me that cares. So take care of myself. Yeah, like live my adventure. Live the movie that I want to watch. And so that's where it started for me, were those three things. Stacy's our life coach's name, and she just said, text me every day. For 21 days, you're going to do these things. And I want to be clear on this. Like, literally, I just stopped eating fast food. For me, getting up early, it was either 5:30 or 6, I think, one of those times. And working out was, I started with 5 minutes a day. I don't know who's worked out for 5 minutes a day, but it goes by very quickly. So I just did it. I did it in our bedroom. I turned on a YouTube video. This is not fancy working out. And so that I did it every day. And I think I added a minute a week or something like that for a little while. And text her at the end of every day. So I got through 21 days. And then on the 21st day, she sent me a fireworks text back and stuff like that. And then said 21 days makes a habit, 90 days creates a lifestyle. Frustrating text to get after 21 days, but it ended up, it was great. Wow. And so I kept going, and it changed my life. So they were dramatic shifts at the end of the year. If you would have asked me, I think all this started in November of 2021. December, January, February, March, April, and nothing really changed. I didn't really notice anything. My body didn't change. My bank account didn't change. My marriage shifted pretty quickly because I noticed that I was just paying attention. I was showing up for life on a real regular basis. Like it was... what did change quickly was I was proud of myself. So within, I would say, certainly several weeks, maybe faster than that, like I just remember that feeling of like, okay, like I see you, Sky, and I'm impressed by what you're doing. And that, there's never been, if I picked one thing, there's never been anything that has created more ripples in my life, my kids' lives, my spouse's life, than that internal feeling of I'm proud of you.
Wow.
Like that has changed everything. And that's part of what the list has gotten longer over the year of what I feel like I need to do to be at my best. But just that really simple concept of are you proud of myself is a question that I would encourage everybody that's listening to ask yourself. And then if the answer's not for sure yes, then get really specific. What are the things that you need to take out of your life, and what are the things that you need to add to your life, and keep it really small, 2 to 3. Like we're not trying to climb Mount Everest tomorrow. So you will, and I think that's the beautiful thing of how habit stacking occurs. Like you just want more. As you get better, P90X becomes the standard, and that's not even the. Like I think about what my workouts look like today. I would have hurt myself if I did them a year and a half ago. Wow. And so life's, I think, beautiful in that regard of the human experience. You just keep growing, like if you choose to. And so I think the things that you want to do, if Everest is on your list, like don't start there. Let that progress to that point. Because I think simultaneously, if you're not careful with this, you get defeated really quickly. So you pick these huge things. You know, if I set out, at least for me personally, at that time, I want to run a marathon in a week. If I did it, I probably would have hurt myself. And if I hurt myself, then you get derailed. And so I think just be cautious with how you set those. But that initial question and then having some very clear follow-up was really impactful.
Yeah, when the connection goes, we continually talk about the human condition, the human experience. Well, that's if you said to a baby, if you said to whatever, a 6-month-old, a 12-month-old, okay, we want you to run a mile. Well, they can't do it. They're not designed that way. They will eventually, but not when they're 6 months old. Not when and we do very, very incremental, very small. And you think about, people talk about their baby's first step and they text everybody and they call everybody like, you won't believe it. Little Johnny took a step today. Big deal. So it doesn't matter. Well, no. That's life. That is life. That's how you get where you want. Well, Johnny took one step. Whoop-de-doo. How many billions and trillions of steps have been taken in the history of mankind? We don't know. A lot. But that's what Johnny needs to do today. And for us to view ourselves that way, to go, okay, we're just going to do a little increment, which seems minuscule, seems like nothing. Yeah, but that's what gets you going in that direction.
I forgot about I stopped drinking alcohol too. And that, for me personally, was a big distraction. And that one wasn't a part of my 3, but it happened in that. And so what I noticed throughout that was as I found more, as I made more healthy choices in life, I got pretty obsessed with feeling better emotionally, physically, spiritually. Like it had this pretty quick impact on all areas of my life. And I think that's where I got to that. I would say I view the lens that I view this topic through now. For me personally, is everything matters. Everything I do impacts something, and this is for me again personally. This was a revelation, like all the way to like growing up. I liked horror movies, and I would and specific type of music. I really enjoyed that, and I don't know if I was convinced or just felt like I needed to convince other people. Like, well, that stuff doesn't affect me. And it doesn't matter what I listen to. It almost doesn't really matter who I spend time with. Like, I can be whoever I want to be if I choose that in that moment. And I don't believe that anymore. I think that the environment that you put yourself in creates who you are and who you become. And I definitely didn't know that before this experiment the last year. And I'm deeply convicted of it now, because I'll still have moments of like, I mean, all the way down to like the way that I eat, the way that I exercise, what I'm watching, what I'm listening to, the conversations I'm having. I feel it. And the realization that those things impact my life are new, because I think where the conviction comes from, it just reminds me of what you're speaking to, of when you experience a really peaceful day with your spouse, or you experience a really proud day with yourself personally, that's a feeling that you can refer back to. And when it's gone, you notice. Where I think in a pretty big way, I wasn't familiar with that feeling. And so I didn't notice. And so if I watched something or listened to something or spent time with people, and the list is at this point long for me, I notice. Like, it stands out, and I want that back. Like, I'm pretty obsessed with that feeling of, at the moment, I would just consider it like living my best life, living the best version of myself. I don't want days to go by where I don't feel that was a day that was intentional. And when those days do go by, I'm in a hurry to get back to have the next day be different. And so that was that was the eye-opening experience that made me start to pay attention in most areas of my life. And that's where the list that we came up with of, if I love this exercise where if 18-year-old Sky came to me today and said, what do I do? I'm very eager, kind of with all things in life, to know what to say. And for me, what is deeply personal about it is I have a 13-year-old son, and I want to give him the information that 18-year-old Sky didn't have. And so I kind of like tally it up. We just were traveling with the Wages and Wes. Do y'all talk about Wes? Okay.
Oh yeah, we talk about Wes.
Okay. Wes and I were talking, and he was like, I don't remember how he asked the question, but it was something like, how do you filter what to tell Asher and Addie and not to? And what, at least this parenting style that I have now, is I don't really filter anything. Like when I hear things that I wish 18-year-old Sky would have known, I tell him. And especially my 9-year-old daughter has no idea what I'm talking about frequently. But we just have created that expectation in our relationship of like, recently Asher called them our daily life lessons. They're not intentional, like coordinated for parents out there. Like, I'm not that type of parent where we sit down and we do our class time and teach 50 minutes. This is,
But that's what he's experiencing, and you didn't even know it.
yeah, totally. And that was really inspiring to me.
Yeah.
Most of where these conversations take place, we live about 30 minutes outside of town, and like the vast majority of them happen in the car. And we just turn off music. Often we're listening to podcasts, which drives them crazy, but I think it's worth doing. And so we listen to podcasts, and I'll pause it and be like, okay, hey, did y'all hear that? This is what that means to me. It'll be 90 seconds, unless I really get on a roll. And then that's it. And then that's their daily life lesson. And so it's been cool to hear them. Asher, it's always cool to hear Asher, but I think because he's 13 and he's articulate, like, it's less surprising. It's my 9-year-old that is surprising. When I hear her relay these messages back, sometimes not even to us, like we'll be in a group setting with other adults, and she'll be like, let me explain to you
Wow.
how this works. And I love that. Like, that's a really proud parent moment for me of feeling like this stuff's getting through.
Yeah, well, and again, that's that incremental. You didn't even know that you were doing daily life lessons.
Totally not.
Because I mean, there's a lot of parents. I was certainly one of those where I'm like, okay, let's plan out the next 2 years. What we're going to do is we're going to have a Thursday evening at 7. And so I would never even get it done. Whereas you're just, and you and I are so very, very different in so many different ways. And you operate so much more functionally because you just do stuff. And then you don't realize, oh, those are called daily life lessons. Well, I'll be darned. Dang. What kind of dad am I? That's amazing. I've been doing I do daily life lessons with my kids, and you don't even know that you're doing it. And for Asher too, but especially for Addie, she won't even remember that, because these will just be almost DNA level for her. She's just growing up with these, again, whatever you label them, daily life lessons. She's just going to grow up never realizing when she learned that, whatever that is. Well, yeah, it's just how you breathe as a family. How you breathe as a dad, that, I just instill daily life lessons into my kids. It's just so exciting for me to see that happening that way.
100%. It makes me realize that you were talking about environment. And for so long, so many of us don't realize how much our environment impacts us. And so like your kids are in your car with you every day, and you are impacting them through daily life lessons. And yeah, they're 13 and 9, everything that even today as a 36-year-old woman I am doing during my day is a daily life lesson. So am I learning from people that are, or things in the environment that are inspiring me to be intentional, that are inspiring me at the end of the day to ask myself, am I proud of myself today? And so that is why environment matters so much, whether we are 9 years old learning these lessons, 36-year-old learning these lessons, or 60. Because we are all still getting daily life lessons continuously. And so I think it's so impactful that as you're asking yourself, am I proud of myself? Am I putting myself in an environment that upholds me being proud of myself? Am I surrounding myself with people that inspire me to be proud of myself? Because if I'm wanting to stop drinking, but I'm still going to the bar with friends that are drinking, it's going to be a whole lot harder for you to not drink. If you're wanting your marriage to succeed and be better, but you're surrounding yourself with people that all they want to do is bash their partner, are you putting yourself in an environment that's going to help you answer yes at the end of that day?
And the definitive answer to that is no, you're not putting yourself in that environment. Like, and there's almost too many things about this to get into all of them, but one of the big quotes that I heard, or I guess the two concepts that were helpful for me to start to redesign my environment was treat yourself like someone you're responsible for. And the realization that I'm more critical. I wouldn't treat my kids the way that I treated myself for most of my adulthood. And that was really convicting of like, but I'm the only me. I'm with me all day, every day. And why is that? Like, why am I being so critical and mean to myself? That was huge for me. And then the other one, and this was very deeply impactful and sticks with me. I don't know that I think about it every day, but for a long time I did. Am I being congruent with who I want to be? So are the decisions I'm making congruent with the man that I dreamt of at one point? And remember those dreams? Like, go back to who you thought you were going to be, because life beats you up and you forget that there was a dream inside of you at some point. If it's still, then I think you can align with that. But for me, I had to go back a little bit of like, who did 18, 20-year-old Sky think 36-year-old Sky was going to be? And I could conclusively say, not me. Like, it wasn't who I am right now, so that's a problem. Like, that to me is something that needs to shake you out of what environment you've created. And I also want to say, because I don't know who I'm talking to, like where you're at, this was super painful. Like the first part of last year was really, really hard. And there were most days where I'm doing all this stuff and there's no impact. So it's like, what's the point in all this? Like, why? Living a mediocre life for me, as uncomfortable as it was more comfortable than the discomfort of growth. Wow. But there was just this like deep belief that I can be something better, and it worked. That's the other beautiful thing of last year was almost by every metric that I know how to measure our year, it was our best year ever. And so that was like, it was just really cool to finish the year. But it took like kind of till the fourth quarter. It was like October, November when we had just had these massive growth moments. And so I do want to say that this is hard. And if you want greatness for your life and for your family, it's hard and it's not normal. So you're not going to fit in. Yeah. And that idea of what that required for me, some of it was forced on us, and which in hindsight was beautiful. Some of it was intentional, but we had to change who we spent time with to understand what was possible. It's what you said, like if all you are ever around is relationships that are very critical of each other and demeaning, then that's what you think marriage is supposed to be. If all you ever are is around kindness and couples that are inspiring each other and lifting each other up, and when one leaves the room, like what you're hearing is, she is impressive. Like, I really, really like her. That's who you become. Or you stopped getting invited back, and you'll notice that. Like, that was another moment for me of like, why am I not hanging out with people that inspire me? The hard conversation I had to have with myself was because I wouldn't inspire them, and they're looking to spend time with people that inspire them. And so these were the gut checks of, okay, well then who would I need to become to spend time with? And not that those people were the goal, But it was, who do I need to become to be inspired by myself? Like that idea of make up this imaginary group of people, and dishearteningly, it often is imaginary. It's hard to go find these people, but make up that group and like, what do they do? And that exercise of, if I walked in and noticed that this group is different, what are they doing? And what do I need to change in my life and in my environment to fit in? And that certainly is not the goal, but in that exercise it is, of what would it look like for me to be one of those at the table.
I am going to argue with that, though, because I don't think that those imaginary people are hard to find.
Okay.
Because I've been there this last year. We just moved up here. And it did take us moving, which you said you had a life shift that was kind of forced on you. You moved, and so you ultimately weren't hanging out with the same people you were before. But I am seeing more and more that those people do exist when you start to become that person that you want to be. That when you start really looking at, well, who am I for people? When you start to become that person, well, then you're going to attract those other people that are inspiring and that are wanting more, because we talked recently about manifesting, and your argument was, well, yeah, if you decide that you want a green Subaru, you're going to start noticing green Subarus everywhere. Well, if I start wanting and becoming this person that's wanting to live intentional, have a great relationship with my partner, be a great parent, if I start becoming that myself, I really believe I've been attracting and finding those other people, because I'm more aware of what to look for. Instead of just getting into a relationship with someone because we have kids the same age, now I'm more aware of, who are these people? Are they asking themselves these questions? And if they're not, I can more quickly and easily move on. That doesn't mean I'm rude to that mom or anything like that.
Right.
But that's not who I'm going to live life with on a continuous basis.
Yeah, and I mean, Scott and I've talked about this a ton, and I certainly get his perspective, because for me, and I always say I was the slow kid in the group, because I was so far behind where you are at your age and stage, because I was about 50 before my partner said to me, babe, and I've shared this many times on the podcast, why do you pursue relationships with people that don't want relationship with you? And that was, first of all, blasphemy to me, because I thought it was evil that anyone would dare think that, much less say it. And then because I was like, well, that's what God wants us to do, pursue relationships with people that don't want a relationship with you. And Phyllis was like, no, you're supposed to hang out with people who are actually kind to you. And that was revolutionary for me. And I remember when you kids, you adult kids got involved in that conversation, that's what I'd always done. I'd expended all of my time and energy on people who were never going to be present with me, safe for me, kind to me. I don't remember if it was you or Echo, but one of you kids said, oh yeah, Dad, that's what you've always done. If somebody spits on you, you invite them over for dinner so they can spit on you in your own home. And I thought that's what I was supposed to be doing. I had no idea that was not healthy, that was not functional. And that revolutionized my life. And now, with our close friends, I always tell them I think they're probably serial killers on the down low. But I don't care that much as long as they kill people in other counties. I'm saying that facetiously. But now I hang out with people who are kind to me, who regard me, and they're not constantly tearing me down. And that has changed so much. So I think for a lot of people, we just absorb the pain, and we don't even realize, no, life's not supposed to be like that. And whatever it is, whether horror movies or alcohol or it's endless, variables that are so detrimental to us, and we don't even think in terms of, wait a minute, what will affect me positively? What will benefit me? Which includes relationships. So again, as I always say, I was the slow kid in the group, but I finally got that in my 50s, that I'm going to pursue relationships with people who are actually kind to me and who do inspire me and who do lift me up. And that was very, very significant for me.
Yeah, and I think two things. One, I think that often where that draw towards unhealthy behavior comes from is, well, I'll just speak for me. The draw to that unhealthy behavior of drinking too much or spending time with people that aren't kind to you was from trauma that needed to be addressed. It was this deep belief so deep that I didn't know I believed it. And I think that's where the real beliefs lie, is like you don't pay attention. They're not conscious. But this belief that like I wasn't worthy of greatness. I wasn't worthy of living at peace and living inspired and being surrounded by people that want the same. And so I think that is a important part in this, what I would consider pretty big life topic, is you got to address some of that. And I think that it helps to do that with a professional that understands how to help you navigate those conversations of like, where is this coming from? Why is there this self-sabotage or whatever the issue is? And I think understanding those, it's not something that's fixed, but I think understanding those helps you in the moment to move past them and go, okay, like here, this is my pattern, and this is why this is my pattern, and I'm not going to do that today. And I had a lot of those in the last year of, oh, okay, you're really drawn to whatever that behavior is. We're not going to do that today. Like, we're going to move past that today. It's not fixed. I don't know how to make it go away. But I think realizing those things were big for me. And I think that is, again, a full circle back to your environment, where when you learn these things, you're able to, in real time, in the moment, protect yourself against them and build an environment that is different, that therefore will have a different outcome. And so often for me, there was that quick, like I just that quick fix of like, I don't need to fix, I don't want to feel all these things. Like historically, I've been pretty allergic to emotion. Like I'm just going to grit my way through this. And one that didn't work, thankfully, because I think if it did, then I would have been in a dark place. But also it was the just belief that life can be different, and and to accomplish different things, I have to do different things. Like I can't repeat the same behavior and expect a different result. And so realizing that helped me just slowly start to dissect, what am I doing that's not working? And I'm allowed to change those. I don't have to sit. I was recently in a room with a few guys, and there was a 29-year-old in there. And I'm going to say there were 5 or 6 of us. And he said, I can't remember the quote, but he essentially said, I'm 29. Like, what else is there to learn? Like, this is who I am. Wow. And there was a guy sitting right beside him that was his employer. And he goes, well, you're 29, so everything. You have everything to learn. You just started.
That's all.
And it was taken really well. And I believe he's in his mid to late 50s. And he's like, I just started figuring life. Yep. I started to learn what I needed to learn in my 30s. He's like, then I tried to learn it in my 40s, and now I feel like I'm starting to get to a place where things are making sense. Wow. And I appreciate that, and I think that our culture does a really poor job in creating those precedents of, emotion's bad and change is dangerous. And I think some of that makes sense just from where the American culture started. And we're in America, so that's the culture I'm the most familiar with. But a lot of it was built just a couple of generations ago out of survival, but we're past that. So let's evolve. Let's move past that concept. But just that idea of like, whatever age it is, like this is who I am. I'm really allergic to that. Like I love the idea of forever growth. Yeah. I also I heard you in a past podcast say something about you want to be 100 or 120. I've got that same desire, and I know to do that well, I need to pay attention, and I need to take care of myself along the way. So, I could kind of just talk about this forever.
Well, and I have a lot. Like I'm just dying to jump in, so I'm going to jump in. Yeah. But the 3 things that are really coming at me, what I love that you said about, am I proud of myself? As for everyone sitting at this table, and then for our listeners, when you ask yourself that, it all of a sudden does become about you. It's not what the latest trend is, what the latest brand is, what the latest workout thing is. It's really, am I proud of myself? And right now, one of my things is I just want to move my body every day and get outside. And it's a fight. Like I will be sitting in my house going, I don't want to. And then I'm like, but I am going to. And I put on my sneakers and I walk outside. And then I almost like the first thing I do is take a really deep breath. And instantly I'm proud of myself. Just that I put those sneakers on, that I walked outside. And it doesn't matter how many steps I take. It's just that first initial action that I'm like, I'm so proud of myself. And I'm going to walk to the mailbox. Our mailbox is pretty far from our door. So that alone is like, I'm walking to the mailbox. And it inspires me in so many ways just to walk to my mailbox. And it always leads to, oh my word, this is a great time to listen to a podcast. And if I listen to a podcast, I'm going to walk back and forth 100 times to my, not literally, because that would be really, really far. But then I start just walking back and forth between my mailbox and my house because I want to listen to that whole podcast. Or I get on the phone with one of my kids or one of my friends. It just leads me to more things. So I love that idea of, are you proud of yourself? And because then it's very personal. It's not, oh, I'm going to go to the gym and, make this big commitment thing. That may be your thing if that's what it takes to be proud of yourself. But it's so personal. I love that. Wow. And then I really, the thought that you were saying, what would you want your 18-year-old self to know? And then, that for those of you who are parents, whatever age kids, for y'all, you were mentioning, you have a 9-year-old and a 13-year-old. And so you're like, well, I want to say to them the stuff that I would want to say to my 18-year-old self. What struck a chord with me about that is I had this really emotional moment on Christmas Day because, as some of you know, my mom passed away 8 years ago, and I brought home a box from her house full of memories, but I have not really gone through this box. Like it has been a painful box for me to even go through. But I know our oldest daughter loves stories. Our oldest daughter is always asking questions. And so for Christmas, I gave her some of the things out of that box. And so we were sitting at the table, and I was actually sitting next to my son-in-law, and he was interested. I don't know what everyone else was doing. They were busy doing things. And we sat there beside each other, and we opened a file, and it was letters that... It was even called that. I think it was called Letters I Never Mailed. And it was my mom, letters she had written that she had never mailed. Wow. And one of them was a letter she wrote me when I was 17 that she never mailed. Yeah. I feel anger and sadness that she never mailed me that letter. I think it would have changed my life if she'd mailed me that letter. Wow. And the letter talked about very tangible things like that one of the dreams my parents had for me was that I would go to college where my dad was a professor, and that none of my siblings had ever had that opportunity because when they were growing up, we lived in Germany, and they would send my older siblings to the States to go to college. And once you left home, you didn't come back. So none of my siblings, I'm the youngest of 8, none of my siblings had that. And so this letter was all about their dream that I would go to college where my dad was a professor, and I would take his Bible class as a freshman. And I just sat there and wept with my son-in-law as he read me this letter. He read it to me, and I was just like flabbergasted and so emotional, like, why, Mom, did you never mail me that letter? I left home when I was 17, so she wrote the letter after I left home of her dreams and that they were shattered and her heart was broken. And I'm like, what stopped her? I don't know what stopped her. But I just encourage you to not do that. Like to me, what you're saying, Sky, is you are hearing that idea of what would I say to my 18-year-old self, and whatever that is, I'm going to say to my 13-year-old, and I'm going to say to my 9-year-old. It's like, don't not say it. Please don't not say it. Like, I think about that all these years later, finding that letter, and I'm like, my parents never talked to me about going to college. They never inspired me to actually go to college. And I think back now, like if I'd have gone to college where my dad was a professor, for all I know, it would have been free, a free college education that I never got. And I left home and struggled. Like I went into the work world. I did try to go to college, but I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how to fill out the forms. I didn't know how to get financial aid. Like it was such a disaster that I didn't stick with it. And it was like, oh my word, Mom, if you had just mailed that letter. And now I find it all these years later in a box, in a file of letters that you said were titled letters I never sent. And it's not just my letter that's in that file. Let me just say that. There's other letters that I sat there on Christmas Day and my son-in-law read to me that I'm like, wow, you never sent these letters to all these people. And mostly family, mostly my siblings. But it's just like, I just think, and I love what you're saying, like what would I say to my 18-year-old self? And to then go, okay, that's what I want to be saying now. I love that. So thank you for sharing that. And I had a third one, but now I've cried so much I don't remember my my third one. But I love these conversations because I think there's times we just live life unintentionally and we don't realize that, yes, these moments matter. Like these 5 minutes, and that's right now my thing. It's like, okay, for 5 minutes, I can get out there and walk and move my body. And then it's like my 5 minutes always turns into a much longer 5 minutes, but it's got to start somewhere. And it's just that, it's kind of if you don't make any intentions in a year, you're just going to kind of be either at the same place or actually possibly worse than where you are today. So if I think of that third one, I'm going to come back around to it. Yes. Did you have a thought?
Oh, my only thought was the wheel. Yeah,
that's true.
But also like with these things, that is something that is so powerful to instill into your life. You talked about, you thought that you were allergic to emotion and how damaging that was. And if you had not realized the opposite of that, it would have been in a dark place, And so doing this, making this part of, at the end of every day, did I connect with my spouse? Like, is this something that I've done today to live intentionally is just such a beautiful thing that then goes out to your entire environment. I love Sky, one of the things that you talk about is like, your life is you and Meg and then your kids. And if the two of you are good, it's like y'all versus the world. And then you bring your kids on that journey with you. And so one of the best ways to do that is to have that moment of intentional connection. And one of the ways that we do it as a family is to go through the wheel with each other, which is something that we close out every single episode of our podcast with. And Sky, I know that there's one right next to you, that you're going to do it today. It's part of it.
Yeah, totally.
So could you do, and if you don't want to, that's fine, but could you do it on, and I don't know, we always try to put a label on it, but whatever you want to call it, the last year and a half, the big life shift for you? Because what you're sharing is just so powerful, and if we, could hear each of the core emotions as far as what happens for you around that.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to think just what to close up with, and then I love that. I'll definitely do it. I think the thing that I would say more than anything with this is, if this podcast inspires you, take a little bit of action. Like don't listen to this and then dream of a world where you did take action and not get to live in that world, because that world exists. And I think that's such a beautiful concept for me of my future is nothing more than the small daily disciplines that I do that will create the life that I now live. And that's either way, like that, the small daily disciplines are happening intentionally or unintentionally. And the intentional disciplines are just slightly more effort than the unintentional ones, but the result is exponential. There's no way to measure the difference. So just that idea of like, you can change today, and what it will do for you is immeasurable. And then when you start to think of the impact that it has on your community and your family, it's worth it. It's worth the effort. So, so I would say the anger around this topic is probably just that I didn't do it sooner. I didn't know what I didn't know. And so that was a lot of it, that I didn't know that this was possible. But there is some anger that I just didn't pay attention because the resources were around me. Shame is probably a similar idea that probably the deepest shame for me is that my kids grew up for years with a dad that wasn't paying attention in the way that I feel like I am today. And I feel shame about that. I feel guilt that I wasted time. We only get this thing once. And I certainly didn't waste the last 15 years, but I feel some guilt that I wasn't paying more attention sooner. I feel fear that it won't last, that I can't handle this opportunity. I've felt a lot of that the last few weeks of our life has changed a lot in the last 6 months. And I want it to stay that way. But it has come with a lot more responsibility. It's come with more both internal and external pressure to stay at a certain level, just as far as life is concerned. And I feel fear that I won't be able to live up to that. I feel lonely in a lot of this. So I regularly come across individuals, friends, people that we spend time with that are not like-minded. And they don't have the same desire to live life at the level that I want to be careful when I'm saying that. Maybe not live life at the level, but that are like-minded.
Yeah.
That are growth-oriented and that want to learn. So I have felt, I will talk about this more offline, but I've felt a lot of loneliness in that way. I feel sad that I didn't understand this information earlier. I feel sad that there wasn't a pamphlet at 18 with all the things that I'm trying to figure out. So I wish it would have been a little simpler and hurt. Hurt's a tough one for me. I don't know if I have a hurt around this one. And then I feel a ton of joy. Just life's been a ride the last few months, and it's been really fun to see it unfold. And pretty continually, there are these moments of like, I dreamt about this. Like I thought 6 months ago, 9 months ago, 12 months ago, like what ifs, and those what ifs are happening pretty frequently right now. And so it's a pretty joyful season, just getting to experience that ride and having a blast.
Wow. Can I say just about the hurt? I think there's been a lot of hurt. Like I think sometimes we have a hard time defining these words, or we think of it one certain way instead of realizing that the whole time prior to this past year and a half, there was a lot of hurt.
Oh yeah.
And so that is your hurt.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
I'll speak to that then, because what got us at a place that there was a desperate need for change was deep hurt. We lost a really close group of friends through circumstances that we felt like we didn't have control over. We moved out of a town that was very familiar to us and moved not that far away, but far enough that it was foreign. So there were layers and layers of hurt that I think established the mindset and the vulnerability to go where it's time to change. Like life has changed us already, so let's build something out of this and be able to look back and say it was worth it. Because the hurt was, I didn't think of it in that way, but deeply painful.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, I want to emphasize that this was really hard. This was not butterflies and roses. Like it was very difficult. And there were a lot of very lonely moments throughout it, both like socially and community wise, but even for me and Meg, like it was, when we peeled all the Band-Aids off, it was a really, really intense, I don't remember the exact time period, but I'm going to probably 6 weeks, where it was not worth it. And I would not have recommended it to anybody. And so I think understanding that if you're going to go on this journey, whatever that looks like for you, like there's pain that is associated with it.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, one of the things that you did say as we close out, talking about your joy, you are amazed because you're like, I dreamed this. And I'm thinking, yeah, you did dream it, but you also started with those 3 things. You started with the question, just as a reminder, like you didn't just wake up and dream it and then it never happened. You actually did the steps, 3 things every single day to go to bed to feel proud of yourself. And so by starting with that question, then a year and a half later, a year later, you could look and say, wow, I'm ending my year. This is the best year we've ever had. And it's because you were intentional and you actually did the action. And so I would say that my ask today for our listeners is to share this specific episode with your core group of friends, with the people that you say, you're my person that I live life with. You're my person that I spend time with. And I'm sharing this with you because I want us to grow in this way together. Like I want to challenge you to grow yourself because I'm challenging myself to grow. And can we do that? I want people that are going to increase the level of environment that I am in. And you're one of those people that are in my environment. So share this episode. We are so grateful that you are here, Sky. Thank you for coming and sharing these lessons with us and what you have learned and what we did as a team just a few weeks ago of diving into this together. And we are here because
I always want to remind you, you need this.
You deserve this. So let's do this.
Let's do this.